And I appreciate you. All right, so it's share. Hold on, we're live now. Let me share this. But yeah, I'll be willing to, man. No problems at all. All right, cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Let me go to this. Give me a quick second. About to start. I'm about to share
Oh
in
no,
these
man, take your
groups.
time.
All right, cool, cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Everything
No,
going
you
well
good.
with you? The whole gas thing and stuff. You doing
Oh,
all right?
everything is going good. I actually work from home, so everything is going good. But I heard that the gas. I live in Florida, so I heard a lot of crazy stuff going on, like gas shortage. But the gas station up the street from my house didn't have a shortage, like for what I seen. So
Oh, that's a blessing, man. That is a
yeah,
blessing.
so
Georgia is wild.
really, wow.
Yeah, it's
So
it's
the
kind of
gas shortage is real.
yeah, pretty
Oh man.
much, pretty much. But all right, man. You let me know. We'll get started.
All right, hold on one second.
Cool, cool.
All right, man, go ahead and shoot.
Jansen Harris here with the final play on the Just Good Network. We are sponsored by Your Future Media. For all media purposes, visit Your Future Media and Got Skills Pro. If you need a handyman or you need services of that nature in Atlanta, Georgia, visit www.gotskillspro.com. Joining me is Ju Talk Sports, man. First of all, go follow him, go subscribe to him, comment with him. He's very consistent on YouTube. Go check out as well his Twitter page, his Twitter handle. Very friendly person, very informational. He does a great job. What's up, man?
What's up, man? What's up? I've been waiting to chop it up with you for a while, man. What's good?
Yeah, man. I get right to it. I know you're a big time Matt Ryan supporter and stuff like that. We disagree a little bit, but hey, tell me why in 2021 you think that Matt Ryan will have a great season.
I think with Arthur Smith coming over as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, him calling the plays, I really think that Matt Ryan's going to take a leap, possibly be in the MVP conversation. I know a lot of people are going to be surprised to hear that, but with the weapons, Kyle Pitts coming over in the draft, Julio Jones, I don't believe the trade rumors that are out there. I do believe he'll still be here in Atlanta in 2021, and for the foreseeable future, I don't see Julio moving on. And then with Hayden Hurst being here, with that double tight end set, with that 12 personnel, I really think that Arthur Smith's going to be able to do some things with Matt Ryan in this offense. And it's kind of similar to that Kyle Shanahan 2016 West Coast style offense where everything is predicated off of the run. So the play action pass is going to be lethal off that run game. And with Calvin Ridley on the outside, Julio on the outside, and then Kyle Pitts, a weapon you can use in the slot and a guy that you can use on the outside, who's just basically like a knife. Basically, you can use him as a Swiss Army knife. He can do pretty much everything with Kyle Pitts. Put him in the slot, put him on the outside. He's not only a tight end, but he's mainly like a hybrid, like the Travis Kelce's of the world. So I definitely think that Matt Ryan this year, if you look over the last 10 years, 4,000 passing yards pretty much every season. I think that you see that leap from last year to this year, mainly because Dirk Cutter was a guy who didn't have the skills to call plays and scheme guys open the way that I think Arthur Smith will be able to do with a Matt Ryan. If you see the way he took Ryan Tannehill, a guy that was struggling in Miami, was able to come over to the Tennessee Titans and basically took that guy from being a guy that the Dolphins didn't want and basically got rid of to a guy that got a new contract and was able to beat out a guy like Marcus Mariota. So I definitely think that Matt Ryan is a much better quarterback than a guy like Ryan Tannehill. And I definitely think that Matt Ryan has a lot left in the tank. I know a lot of people think he's done. I think Matt Ryan has a lot left in the tank.
Now, Ju, describe to me how important you think this offseason is for Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts, especially Kyle Pitts being a rookie, for them to get that chemistry going, the talks, and some of the workouts. How important do you think that'll be?
I think it's huge. And we all know, I don't know if they're doing it this year, but Matt Ryan usually has a passing camp where they go to California, the receivers and the skill position players, the running back. They go out there and catch passes. I did hear Kyle Pitts saying after he was drafted that Matt Ryan basically called him or texted him and said, look, let's go have lunch or have dinner. And I'm sure those guys were doing that so they could go meet up somewhere on a field, whether it's at the Falcons facility or maybe somewhere in California where they can actually go out there and work on some routes and things of that nature, because we know chemistry is huge. And that's a big reason why I don't want the Falcons to get rid of a guy like Julio Jones, because Matt Ryan has basically thrown every touchdown Julio Jones has caught in his career has come from a guy like Matt Ryan. So the chemistry that those guys have, I think that's something that you can't overlook. I know a lot of people are like, well, Kyle Pitts is a guy that can come in and can do similar things to Julio, and he does have the skill set. But I think the biggest issue is going to be he doesn't have that chemistry with Matt Ryan. And you've seen that kind of with a guy like Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, when he first came in his first couple years, he had to develop that chemistry with Matt Ryan, because everything is based off of timing. When the receiver and the quarterback or tight end and the quarterback, everything is 3-step drop, 5-step drop. I'm stepping back. When that back foot hits on that 3rd step, I'm letting the ball go. And I'm throwing the ball to a spot, because Matt Ryan is a guy that throws off of anticipation. So if you're a guy that doesn't know how to run routes the way he wants you to run, run the routes, and you don't understand coming back to the football and things of that nature, you're going to, cause a lot of turnovers, interceptions, tip balls. And that's something that you've seen out of a guy like Calvin Ridley last season, where Matt Ryan and his timing kind of was off the first couple seasons with Calvin Ridley. So even though Kyle Pitts is one of those guys that's athletic, I think it's going to take a couple years for him to develop that chemistry with a guy like Matt Ryan, the chemistry that him and Julio has.
Speaking of wide receivers, let's talk about Russell Gage. 72 grabs last year, 786 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. I know there's a bunch of Falcon fans out here who are pretty excited about him even bringing his numbers up. But do you realistically see with Kyle Pitts and hopefully Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley stay healthy, do you realistically see Russell Gage improving his numbers?
I don't think that Russell Gage improves his numbers this year because of all of the weapons that's been added. To be honest, I think Russell Gage is going to take a step back because he's not going to see the targets. I really think with Kyle Pitts coming into the into the picture, and then a guy like Hayden Hurst, I think Hayden Hurst is actually going to see more of those targets that Russell Gage saw last season. Because if you go look at the stats and the statistics, they say that Arthur Smith runs a high percentage of double tight end sets. So I don't even think Russell Gage is going to be on the field as much as he was last year. Like Dirk Cutter was a guy that loved the 3 wide receivers, 1 running back type sets. And I don't think that a guy like Arthur Smith, who wants to be more physical in the trenches and wants to run the football, we all know that Dirk Cutter was a guy that didn't like to run the football or wasn't interested in running the football. So with us being a more hard-nosed, run the ball first type of offense, I think a guy like Russell Gage, I think he still will have some success and he'll get a couple touchdowns. He'll basically get in sometimes on 3rd downs to move the chains. You can drop him in the slot. But with a guy like Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst, guys that are basically hybrids, they're not just strictly tight ends. They can run, wide receiver routes. I think that a guy like Russell Gage is going to take a step back. I don't think he's going to see the numbers he saw last year.
Follow Ju Talk Sports on YouTube and also Twitter, like I mentioned before. Ju, I got to ask you, do you see any potentially, do you see them trying to move Gage? It sounds like you don't think he's going to get as much playing time as last year.
I don't think they move him, but if we could save some money with moving him, I could see us moving him. But because he's still under his rookie deal, I don't think that he's a guy that we'll trade. We could trade if a team is willing to give us, a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick for him. Why not? But he doesn't have a big enough contract. So I feel like if we keep him, we're not picking up his 5th year option. I'll tell you that. He's not going to get his 5th year option picked up. He's a guy like Hayden Hurst who didn't get his 5th year option picked up because we have Julio, Ridley, and Ridley's going to be needing a new contract soon. They picked up his 5th year option. I think a guy like Russell Gage is going to be one of those guys that we end up getting rid of. once his contract is over, and he'll just be a guy that possibly walks. Maybe we'll get a comp pick for him because he's going to walk in free agency. But with guys like Olamide Zaccheaus, and then we also drafted Frank Darby, who's another guy that pretty much can do a lot of different things in the, in special teams, which Russell Gage played for special teams originally. So I can see Frank Darby being that next guy up that can possibly do what Russell Gage does. And then also Olamide Zaccheaus. He was a guy last year before he got injured who got on the field and proved that he could, take the top off the defense. He's not, to me, as skilled in running routes like a guy like Russell Gage, but I think Olamide Zaccheaus is a guy who can also do some things. So between him and Frank Darby, those two guys will be able to do what Russell Gage can do for us. So I think after this year or whenever his rookie deal is up, I don't see us bringing back a guy like Russell Gage. Just too many. It's basically a log jam at that wide receiver position.
Okay, let's talk about a guy who did get his option picked up, Calvin Ridley. He has 26 touchdown passes in 2 years. What are your expectations for him this upcoming season, playing with Julio Jones? And as we mentioned before, Kyle Pitts has some people looking at this offense like one of the deadliest offenses in the league. What is Calvin Ridley's role going to be, and what do you expect from him?
Hey, I expect a big year. We talked a little bit about this on AFN, Atlanta Falcons Nation. You guys definitely go hit that subscribe button there as well. We talked about it in our show, and I basically said I think Calvin Ridley is a guy who's going to have – I think he's going to have better numbers than Julio Jones personally, because I think that every team double teams Julio, double teams, triple teams, and now you have a guy like Kyle Pitts who's 6'6", 245. You're going to have to bracket coverage him, so you can't double team everybody. So I think that a guy like Calvin Ridley – is going to eat off of those guys, meaning they're going to have to man up and man-to-man coverage with a guy like Calvin Ridley. And he's a guy that has proven he's one of the best route runners in the game. So I could easily see him having over 1,000 yards. This past season, he had like 1,300 yards receiving. I can see him right around 1,000, over 1,000 yards again, maybe 10 plus touchdowns, because you got to double team, the other guys because of their size. So what I think a lot of teams will do, they possibly will put their best corner on Calvin Ridley in one-on-one coverage. And I think they'll put maybe their number 2 corner and a safety to bracket a guy like Julio. And then Kyle Pitts will be another guy that they'll try to bracket with either a linebacker, safety, corner, their third best corner. But I think what they'll try to do, because they're going to have to play man-to-man on Calvin Ridley, they'll possibly put their number 1 corner on him. But I don't think it'll still work, because the way that Calvin Ridley runs his routes, he's a man beater. The way he runs his routes is pretty much impossible to cover that guy. So in man-to-man, he's going to beat that all day. The only thing that I'll say about Calvin Ridley is he has to work on the physicality side of his game, because he's a guy that doesn't like to take the big hit. And I think that he has to learn to just get down. When you're going across the middle, if you're going to make a catch across the middle, a contested catch the ball and go down. He's a guy that over the last couple seasons where he would catch the ball and then he would run backwards. So it's like, just protect yourself. Run across the middle. If you feel that safety coming, just go down. That was something that I think the Patriots receivers, those smaller guys they had, Wes Welker, what's the other guy, Edelman, Julian Edelman, the same guy, would go across the middle. He knew how to get down and protect himself. So I definitely think that that's something that Calvin Ridley has to learn. But I think he's going to have a big season, because with those two generational talents, as I call them, Julio and Kyle Pitts, you're going to have to give somebody that man-to-man coverage. And I think the guys that's going to eat off of that man-to-man coverage is going to be Calvin Ridley, and it's going to be Hayden Hurst. I think both of those guys are going to have a big year.
Okay, let's talk about Arthur Smith and this running game of the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, that was one of the big reasons why he was hired. Let's just be honest. We talked about the two guys you described as generational talents, Julio Jones, Kyle Pitts. Let's talk about this running game. What Davis is going to bring. How do you see Arthur Smith's system improving this Falcons running game that Falcon fans have complained about? And obviously, it just wasn't effective enough last year.
Well, I think it's going to he's definitely going to bring that physicality back to the Atlanta Falcons. I believe we're going to go back to the days of Michael Turner. And that's why we brought in a guy like Mike Davis. I really see Mike Davis as similar. Like, if you look at their size, their stature, the way that they run the ball, one cut, north and south, and he reminds me a lot of Michael Turner. He has better speed, or more speed than you think he has, and he's very good at breaking tackles. If you look last season, I believe they say he was second in most broken tackles last year, and a guy like Mike Davis, who came in and filled in for the great Christian McCaffrey for the Carolina Panthers. And I think that Mike Davis is kind of being overlooked because in the draft, I thought that the Falcons were going to draft a running back, and everybody was assuming because we're going to be run heavy or we're going to run the ball a lot more than we have over the last couple seasons, being that we're going to run that West Coast offense. I think that a lot of people thought, and I was one of those guys that thought that we would at least draft someone maybe in the later rounds, like a Chuba Hubbard that actually signed with the or was drafted by the Panthers. I thought we would take one of those guys, but we decided to go, with Davion Hawkins, who I think is a guy that's special and is very explosive. And I was surprised he didn't get drafted. But I definitely think that a guy like Arthur Smith coming over from Tennessee, I think a lot of people looked at where he had Derrick Henry. I do think that part of it was having a great running back like Derrick Henry. But if you remember, prior to Arthur Smith getting there, Derrick Henry wasn't even a starting running back the first couple years. I believe they had DeMarco Murray, and he wasn't, rushing for over 1,000 yards. He was a guy that was basically coming in as that second running back. It wasn't until Arthur Smith kind of got there with his offensive scheme, because, I believe he started off as a tight ends coach. I don't believe he was the offensive coordinator until Mike Vrabel came in there and seen that he had the skills, and he elevated him to the offensive coordinator. So being that when he got in there with his run scheme, and if you look at a guy like I compare him to a guy like Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers, because if you look at Kyle Shanahan, it doesn't matter who he has in the backfield. His scheme is basically, what actually, works. It's not really the running back. You don't need a generational talent to run in that West Coast scheme. It's all about the blocking up front. And I think that that's something in the draft that a lot of people kind of overlook. And I was even surprised to see the Falcons went offensive line heavy. We got the kid Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan, and then we got the kid Drew Dahlman out of he's a center from Stanford. So I think that those two guys, we took them because we want to be more physical. So I really think Arthur Smith is going to bring that physical, tough running style, just like they had in Tennessee. And I think, like I said before, everything is going to be predicated off the play action pass. So it's going to make Matt Ryan's job a whole lot easier. That's another reason why when you asked me earlier about Matt Ryan, I really feel like it's going to be a lot taken off of Matt Ryan's plate. I think people don't realize how much Matt Ryan had on his plate with a guy like Dirk Cutter that wanted to spread everything out, throw the ball 50 plus times a game. You can make that guy's job a lot easier if you just allow them to run the ball, just like they did with Jimmy Garoppolo the year they went to the Super Bowl. I think they ran the ball or passed the ball 8 times in the NFC Championship game against the Packers, and they just let the running backs do their thing. Mostert, all those guys that had Tevin Coleman, who was the former Atlanta Falcon that was over there that year that they went to the Super Bowl. And I feel it's going to be the same exact thing for our Atlanta Falcons. Doesn't matter who you put back there in that backfield, that offensive line is what's going to be key to open up holes. Because if you look at last season, I don't believe that Dirk Cutter had the schemes, and our offensive line didn't play well last season. If you go back and watch a lot of the tape and watch film, our offensive line was not, doing a good job. They were losing the line of scrimmage, basically. There wasn't many holes for Todd Gurley and those guys to run through. So I think a lot of the running backs took a lot of criticism unnecessarily last year, but it was mainly the offensive line and mainly Dirk Cutter's poor play calling.
Okay, before we exit, I just want to ask you, Eagles, Falcons, what were your thoughts on that as they announced that game?
You know what's crazy? I didn't realize that every other year we started off playing the Eagles. I actually follow a couple Eagles YouTubers, and one of the Eagles YouTubers that I follow, he basically was talking about every other year they play the Falcons.
Lazy schedule makers, right?
Yeah, so I didn't even notice that. I was like, wow, we did play them. I believe he said we played them like not this last year, the first game, but 2 years ago. And every other year, it seems like it flip flops. Either we're at home playing them, or they're at Atlanta playing us. So I think it's just like you said, lazy NFL schedule makers. They're lazy and they just like that matchup for whatever reason. They like that to be the week 1 matchup. I don't know what it is between Eagles Falcons. I think it is a good matchup though, because every time we play the Eagles, it seems like it comes down to the last drive. If you remember 2 seasons ago, Julio Jones screen pass touchdown, and then they had the bomb where they threw the ball down the field, and I believe it was Nelson Aguilar that dropped the wide open touchdown pass. So it seems like every single time we play them, it always comes down to the last possession. So I'm expecting a great game. I do think that the Falcons should have the upper hand going into week one, just for the mere fact that we both have first-time head coaches. The Colts, I believe the former offensive coordinator there for their team, who's now I think his name is Sirianni, who's their head coach over in Philly. He's going over there to be their head coach, and I don't believe that he's as good as a head coach as a guy like Arthur Smith. I'm not too big on his scheme, and I don't think that the Eagles have the weapons that we have. They did draft the Heisman winner, Devontae Smith, at wide receiver. But after that, they don't have a ton of weapons on the offensive side. They're always tough in the trenches, though. So that's the reason why I always give the Eagles a shot, to compete with us, because of Fletcher Cox, because of Brandon Graham. And, they always are tough up front. And that front seven for the Eagles is always tough. I just don't think they're going to be able to match up with our explosiveness with Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and then now with a great play caller, because I really think that that's the biggest thing that's being overlooked, is the play calling. I think we're going to see this year the huge difference between Dirk Cutter and a guy like Arthur Smith that understands play calling, understands time and possession, because that was something that killed us last year. We lost like 7 to 8 games where it came down to the wire. And our point differential was like one of the smallest point differentials in the league last year. So that just goes to show you understanding time and possession, understanding that when you have the game at hand and when you have the lead, run the ball. The way that you end the game, ice the clock. Run the ball and pass rush. That's the way you end games. Get a turnover, get after the quarterback, run the football, be physical. If we do those things, I think the Falcons make the playoffs this year.
Okay. Hey, man, Ju, great job, man. Shoot, we can talk Falcons all day, man. We got to do this more often. Follow him on Twitter, Ju Talk Sports. Also follow him on YouTube. Do you have any shout-outs, sir?
Oh, most definitely, man. I just want to thank you for having me on the platform. Like I was stating, man, we definitely going to have to do this more often. Also want to shout out Atlanta Falcons Nation, AFN. Please go hit that like, subscribe button. Ju Talk Sports. Please hit that like, subscribe button. We're on the quest to 2,000. But I really appreciate you, Jansen, having me on the platform. And I'm excited, man. I haven't got a chance to glance at the schedule, but I know the schedules came out at 8 p.m. So I'm interested to see the rest of this schedule. I know we're playing the Eagles week 1 at home, but I'm very interested to see, because from what I hear, we have a pretty easy schedule. We have like a last place schedule because we were one of the worst teams in the league last year. So let's see if we can capitalize on that.
Absolutely, man. We're gonna have to come back and do it again. I appreciate you. We're sponsored by Your Future Media. For all media purposes, visit Your Future Media, the GGC Game Room. If you go to GGC, visit the Game Room. Literally all the games. Have a fun time. And also Got Skills Pro for assembly and handyman work in the Atlanta area. Visit gotskillspro.com. Appreciate you, man. We gotta do it again.
All right, man. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up.